All right, so here we are. Yeah. So first of all, just thank you for meeting with me to chat. This is really cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, we really appreciated the offer to come on and have a chat. Sounds like it's going to be a good time.
I saw you guys on Twitter. That's how I found out about you guys. Get Stagedive.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, we went through a couple of changes, really messed up our verification because we were trying to get that name right, but we settled on Get Stagedive.
It's funny because when I started this with my co-host Leon, we had like 3 different names, and then we just eventually went with Our Mind on Music, which is based on the title of a book called "This Is Your Brain on Music."
Oh, that's so funny because that's exactly what I thought of when I saw it. I was like, "Oh, this is your brain on drugs, or this is your brain on music." That's
Well,
that's cool.
yeah, Daniel Levitin, a guy who's originally from Montreal. It's an amazing book. If you get a chance, absolutely read it. He's like a musicologist, but he gets into like sort of the psychology of music, like why we listen to what we listen to and stuff. It's really cool.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Thanks for the recommendation. I'll definitely check that out.
So let's talk about Stage Dive. The main thing I'm hoping to get across through this chat is like, what is Stage Dive? How is this an opportunity for creators like myself as a podcaster, but also as a musician? So what is Stage Dive?
Absolutely, yeah. So stage dive is an idea right now. So the idea being that the music industry, the way that it's developed over time, I get this general feeling that most folks are not really satisfied with how payments work, with how contracts work. In reality, a lot of artists who are trying to break into music sort of end up having to put up with lots of abuse. So, but just so you guys know, there's a whole bunch of folks who are working with me who are all either former musicians or podcasters or content creators of some sort. So we have sort of a little bit of experience in trying to break in and trying to make that what starts as like a dream, right? Hey, I'd really like to create content for a living, trying to break that into a profession and then sort of finding out that the business doesn't really work the way that you thought it would or hoped that it would. So with that, we started trying to think, how do we make a platform or a tool that is like a do-over on the music industry? How do we make something where it's like we wish the music industry worked this way? So how do we make a platform that in fact functions that way? So the idea being, we want people to be able to create content. We want people to be able to post that content to put their music out into the world, and then have it be sort of a proving ground, a testing ground to see, hey, is this something that attracts listeners? Is this something that is interesting to our audience? And we're building some tools to help accomplish that. Um, so that's what it is from a creator's perspective. But there's almost a whole other conversation around what stage dive is from the listener's perspective, which is really kind of a simple conversation. It's just a really top tier, fantastic streaming app where the customer experience, the listener experience is top level. We're adding features that make it so that they can get closer to supporting the artists that they care about, that they like listening to.
I think that's super cool because I mean, even like in the case of Our Mind on Music, we haven't tried to monetize at all at this point. This is episode 25, so we're very new as well. But I mean, taking a look at what that actually means on a couple of different streaming options, I feel like we may never be able to actually monetize this podcast, which for
Well,
whatever it's worth, there are people who like you just said, like the dream is to be able to do this as for a living.
mhm.
I don't know how that would work. So let me ask you this question, because one of the questions when I was chatting with friends about the fact that I was going to be talking with you, they said
Mm.
so that sounds really cool. So how does that work? Like, how do you decide where the income comes from, and then how is that divided across you as the creators and the creators of the content? How does
Mhm.
that work?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you asked because this is actually a hot topic of discussion. Basically, everyone that we're approaching saying, hey, hop on stage dive, they all are asking exactly that question. What are you and how do I actually make money? So I think the best way that I like to describe this is a rebuke of the ad model. I personally very much dislike the ad model from a listener's perspective. I don't like having ads play in the middle of music that I'm listening to. It's really hard to get into some good, like, I don't know if you like punk rock, but listening to some punk rock music and then have a commercial come on that's like selling you insurance. It throws the vibe way off. Not a lot of fun.
It's so funny you
So
said insurance because that's exactly what I thought when you said that.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that's inevitably what's going to happen. You're going to be, listening to music about Fight the Machine, and then here comes, an insurance salesman. So this is a rebuke of that. We want to get the middlemen out of the way. So you think about the way that a show works or a gig works. The people who want to listen to you show up and they pay a door cover charge and they buy drinks during your set or whatever, and you get a portion of that money. We're trying to mimic that model in a digital format. So The way that it works is, roughly speaking, especially for people who sign up during the beta phase, so creators who sign up during the beta phase, we're doing a 50-50 split. So the subscription for a listener is going to have a set price. 50% of that comes to us to keep the platform running, which is ultimately what we want. We want the platform to be able to grow. We're not trying to own anybody's content. We're not trying to sign anybody to contracts. We want the platform to continue to grow so that they can benefit. So that's where our 50% is going. In addition to that, the other 50% gets divided up among the creators that that listener streams. So, and it's proportional to the amount of time that they spend streaming. So the idea being, you're a listener, you pay, I'll just throw a number, let's say $3.99 per month. Okay, so half of that goes into Stagedive. The remaining is sort of put into a creator's pool. Now, whoever you go and stream, whoever you go and listen to during a given month, the other half of your subscription gets divided up among those folks. It's a model that hasn't really been put out into the marketplace, hasn't really been tested, so the viability of it is a little bit tough to break down to a science. The way that we're sort of moving forward with this, though, is we're thinking along the lines of, wouldn't it be fantastic if that is the way that it worked? Wouldn't that really remove a barrier of entry to the market for people who are thinking about creating, who would love to be able to make really good music and put it out there? I mean, wouldn't it be great for those folks if they could have the ability to monetize in that way without having to now get millions and millions of streams, to start getting ad revenue that is like a penny per stream or something like that. They can market directly to their listeners, say, hey, hop on Stagedive, come and listen to us there, because that's where we benefit. That's where you are supporting the band more directly. If we can pull that off and make that work, we think it's a fantastic tool for creators. And it's also a really satisfying thing for a listener to hear a band that they like and then find a way directly to go and support them. You go to many gigs and shows, things like that,
Yeah, yeah.
and see a band that you've never listened to before, but you love their music, and you start thinking, how can I get involved in this? How can I support them? I'm going to tell everyone I know about this band I heard this Saturday, right? So you want some way to go and actually help support them. You buy some merch, you tell your friends, but that's usually about as far as it goes. Well, in this case, you would actually be able to say, hey, I'm going to add them to a playlist that I have on Stagedive. I'm going to listen to them regularly. I'm going to share it with my friends. We have shareable playlists. That's a feature that's coming, by the way. So you
Yeah.
actually have a way to get more directly involved with helping a band that you're interested in spread their reach and spread their ability to monetize.
That is first of all, it's mind-blowingly amazing from the like I'm thinking when I was way back in the day when I was playing in a band regularly, what you said, like okay, this is how old I am. We had cassettes at our gigs.
I remember cassettes. Yeah, I've heard of these. Yeah.
I've heard of them. You rewind them with a
Yeah.
pencil, you know the one.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
But then
Earliest
later we
childhood
had
memories coming up now. Yeah.
later we had CDs, but yeah, we had people who loved our music and they were like, I really hope you guys make it big. So they bought our CD, they bought our t-shirt, they paid the cover charges and all that stuff. But there was really no way to continue that same support that they were happy to give. There was just no platform for that to happen.
That's
And
right.
here we are, quite a few years later, obviously, and we're talking about exactly the same thing. And you're the first person that I've spoken with who's actually identified exactly a way to do that, and is actually doing something about it, which is, I think, super exciting. Because, I know for writers, for example, if you write any articles, content like that, living in China, traveling around. I've met a couple of travel writers and they've said the same thing. Like back in the day before Lonely Planet became like a website and then there were all these travel blogs and stuff, there was Lonely Planet, the book.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I met a guy who was writing for Lonely Planet, the book, and he was traveling all over the place on his own dime. And then he would write an article, and if they liked the article, they'd give him X number of dollars to accept it. And he kept doing that, losing money all the way, just throwing money, right?
Sure. Yeah.
With
It's
the
a
with
lot
the
of
hope,
investment to get not a guarantee of a payoff. Right. Yeah.
correct. With the hope that he'd become a recognized writer. But of course, there are thousands and thousands of other people doing exactly the same thing. Music, I mean, I don't know if you read that article about Billboard was saying that they get 120,000 song submissions a day.
Right. Yeah.
So, like,
I mean,
what
I
do you
didn't read the article, but that sounds about right, because a lot of people want to be involved in music and want to create. But wow, the magnitude of that is mind blowing. Wow.
well, it means that even if I'm an avid listener, I cannot listen to 1% of that, it would be a
It's
full-time
your
job.
entire life. Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
consume all of that information. Yeah,
But
certainly,
then
and
what
let
you're
alone
talking
remember it, right? Yeah,
correct. Yeah. So this brings me to a couple of things because yes. So if I make that connection from a retro standpoint, yeah, get people who like your music. They want to support you, not support some other company that has nothing to do with this in order to give you a percentage of because it feels like okay, like you're putting in that money to support this artist and then the shareable playlist. I love that because it's like because I could say I know that you like punk music, so when I hear something punk that is new that you might not have heard of, I can share that with you, and now we both know what that is. You know,
exactly right. There is a certain value to running things via algorithm, right? That's very well proven in all of the social media. If people want algorithm driven music suggestions, that exists. That's everywhere. You can go to YouTube for that, Spotify for that. I mean, you can really go wherever you like to get something that generates things that the machine thinks you're going to like. Now, there will be the ability for us to suggest music to folks based on, hey, we think you'll like this. But what we really want is people to be engaged with the content such that they find things that they like and they're sharing it with other people that they think will like it. It's all about trying to build up a platform for the creator to be able to increase their reach, right? It's not so much about us trying to force a taste on somebody or to force people towards certain content. The more organic, the better, because that's the way that real life works, right? There's an algorithm for everything, but the genuine experience of discovering new music, it has to be organic. Otherwise, it doesn't feel the same. You know what I mean?
absolutely. I mean, like, how then? Let's say that I'm more of a passive listener, that I like a style of music, but I don't really know. I don't go to shows. I don't know bands, or the bands that I like don't play shows. Let's
Sure.
say,
Yeah.
like, so one of the questions I have two questions. One question is, so how then would I start the ball rolling? Because I think once the ball starts rolling, then I just make the connections and I select through which things I like. Second thing, how have you guys thought through how this looks for big artists, signed artists? Like, do the record companies allow them? Would they allow them to sign on with you guys? Like Metallica wants to be part of Stagedive, right?
Mm.
For them, this would be a gold mine because they would get 50%, in this case for Beta,
Hmm.
50% of the listening, which would be millions. Gold mine for you guys as well, which is the way it should be. You're providing the
Sure.
platform and everything else, all the logistics. They're providing the content. It's a 50-50 split. That's like utopian music world, you know?
Right. Yeah. So how to first of all, how to get the ball rolling is a fantastic question. So we're going to have tools available for you to search, look for things that you like, preview, just kind of scroll through the music, chopped up by genre. What we're finding is that it's tough to put a lot of the independent music into boxes like genre. Even a lot of them don't even really like the question when I say, "Hey, what genre are you?" They're like, "Well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm." They have their own mishmash, and I love
That's
that. Right?
that's exactly what I was thinking because I create music, right? And
Sure.
a lot of it just because it's like a hobby for me now. Like I teach music at this school that I'm in right now.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Okay.
so I'm a music teacher and I create music because I love creating music. But I don't create rock music. I don't create EDM. I create whatever music occurs to me that day because I'm not trying to fit into a genre and I'm not trying to get on the radio. So now this sort of begs the question, what would that mean? How would somebody find me?
Yeah, yeah. So sorting it is going to be a little bit tough. There is going to be a certain amount of applying parameters that we're going to. I mean, there's not really a way around it in order to catalog music. The same could be said for how do you sort every record. I mean, maybe a record would roughly fit into a rock genre. So in some record stores, it's in the rock section. Other times, it's in more of a bluesy section, right? Because those two kind of tend to cross over. So at some level, there's going to have to be a categorization, but the ability to just sort of scroll through and explore, we're going to make that super accessible, which I know it's tough to describe that without showing you like the app screens and things like that. It's killing me not to show you because I have some really cool stuff that I would love to show. There's some deeper, I would argue, cooler stuff that's under the hood that I would love to show you. So
Wow. I really
yeah.
find this exciting, especially I found it exciting when I read it and I thought, nah, I'm probably like reading into this, you know? But
Mm.
actually what you're telling me is exactly what I was hoping it would be.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm so excited to hear you say that because that's what we're trying to build, right? It because to us, this just makes sense. This is what each of us, when we were a kid and we were dreaming of being a rock star, right? Or we're learning how to play guitar one day. Here's how I think the music business works. Here's how I want it to work. We're trying to bring some of that into reality because at the end of the day, why isn't it that? It's got to do with the fact that somebody at some point rolled out a business model that worked for the label or that worked for the big publication. And then everybody else said, there's the model that works. We're just going to roll with it. That's why I think that the ad model is the only model that exists right now in music streaming. And we're just kind of saying, hey, there's probably another way to do this. And I mean, we're willing to try to prove it. Sure. Who's going to know if someone tries?
Exactly. It honestly, it feels to me like the current music business format is, as a teacher, we talk about like bullying in schools. And
Sure.
this is it's the record companies, the record industry is talking to creators saying, give me your lunch money. So what's
Yeah.
going
I
on?
mean, when you end up owning somebody's content, I mean, I can't think of something more egregious really than to say I own what you have created. Like to me, that feels it's not a deal that I would be excited to be a part of, right? Somebody else is going to own and control the destiny of my creative work.
Prince spoke about this idea in 2015 when he released his Hit and Run on Jay-Z's streaming service. Prince cited unfair practices in the music industry at that time, which I believe are very much in practice still today.
I would rather be in the driver's seat. It's my creative work. I would like to steer my creativity to where I want it to go. So if I can create a platform, my team, I say I, but in reality, it's the guys behind me. I mean, I've got a fantastic team. But if we can create a platform that puts the artist or the creator back in the driver's seat and let them steer, that's the dream come true for the folks at Stagedive. That is what we're trying to do specifically.
And for the listener, it means that, like I said, like for me as a hobbyist, one of the freedoms that I have now, not trying to create content to go on to a certain radio station or radio format, I just create what comes to my mind. Some of it's great, some of it's not. What I put out there is the stuff that I think is great, but it's not the stuff that I think is great as a rock musician. It's stuff that I
Mm.
think is great as what that song is,
Sure. Yeah,
you know?
it's what fits into the mood you were feeling or the emotions behind what you created. Yeah. So having the freedom, the ability to do that, um, man, if I can enable that with a few folks, I mean, I'm over the moon. That's awesome. Now, this actually does bleed into kind of your second question there. Have we thought through how this works for the bigger creators? And yeah, I think that they're going to see a big potential in earnings, um, possibly from using a model like this, because 50%, I mean, yeah, so using Metallica as an example, if Metallica comes on, Metallica has a lot of fans. Um, I don't know if a lot of their fans want to sign up for another music streaming platform in order to hear Metallica because Metallica is everywhere, right? So
Yeah, but
what
as a
would
Metallica fan, I could see how I would want to switch from the current listening platform that I have to the one that's going to give them 50% of the earnings that I put into it. What this would mean for Metallica in this example, using these numbers, instead of getting $8 million, they would get 100 times that, 100 times that, 100 times that, using Stagedive's 50-50 format.
but that does bring into question the other half of that. Will their label allow them to do that? Will the people who are in control of the content allow them to do that? And then how complex does that make the payout, right? Is I don't want to get in the way of anybody's royalties. I don't want to get in the way of anybody's structures that they are signed to. By all means, if there's some restriction keeping you from using this platform, that the platform's probably not for you. You're effectively on the old model. Right. So if you do have the flexibility or freedom to join, I mean, yeah, you're welcome here. Absolutely. We would love to have bigger acts sign up or get interested or invest or however that ends up taking shape. But at the end of the day, when I'm picturing who I'm building this for, it is certainly for the independent artist. That's who's in the back of our mind as we're putting things together. What tools work for the independent artist who doesn't have all those other considerations kind of in the way?
And to be clear here, because I signed up, I remind on music for Stagedive. It's not
Okay.
only for music creators. You also have podcasting.
Yes. Yeah. That's a really great point. Just because the music creators are most of the folks who are responding, it's who I'm talking to, day by day on Twitter. It's who I'm reposting. But podcasts like yours and like others, all forms of podcast also We are very much interested in having long form content on the platform as well. A lot of it is just about the freedom, the ability to speak your mind, to say the things that are on your mind, have the ability to monetize if you like. Specifically for podcasters and that style of content creator, they've typically had two options, really, which is go into the mass media sector, an established media brand where they then are in control of your broadcast times, your show format, their producers are putting your stuff together for you. Or you go the independent route, which is where you're posting things on YouTube and you're just sort of at the mercy of the algorithm. So who's going to see you, who's not going to see you, you're kind of at the mercy of their rules and their strikes and things like that. You have to sort of fit into a mold at some level of your ability to create.
At a huge level,
So
because like when I look at how many views, millions of views I have just to be able to be on the list of being monetized, that doesn't mean they're monetizing. It means that I'm now on the list to see if I'm now eligible, because before I get
yes.
millions of views, I'm not even eligible.
Yeah, and long before you're eligible to monetize, you have people who are super interested in your content, who are following you, who are dedicated to you. They are engaged with your content, not just engaging as in click a like button, but they are listening and participating in like this little bubble community that you're creating for yourself, right? So we're trying to latch on to that idea. Like at that stage, we want you to be able to monetize on our platform. You know, you don't need the millions of streams before you're eligible to monetize. And then even like when you actually do monetize, now they're going to start throwing ads on your videos. Now, how many plays does it take before you make a dollar?
Well,
Right.
and how many
And,
people stop engaging because, like, okay, so if I listen to a lot of podcasts, let's
hmm,
say it's the end of the night and I'm like kind of winding down, I'll listen to some Sherlock Holmes or some Jack Benny old radio
no
shows,
kidding. Okay. Hey, that's cool. Yeah.
it's cool, but then suddenly in the middle of that, I'm listening to Jack making a joke and bloop, it stops and it goes into commercial time and they're talking about something there's no connection. And even if it was something really connected with what I care about outside of Jack Benny land, I've
Hmm.
just left the 1950s and I'm now here again. So it's wrecked the illusion, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
And then I kind of stopped listening. I literally hit the stop button and okay, I'll just go to sleep now. It really breaks the moment, you know? And if I were listening to music, the same thing would happen. So the fact that you're talking about not having the ads and the fact that without having the ads, you're still actually making more as a creator, much, much more. I
Mm.
think that's really exciting. I got to ask you a question. We're a video podcast. Is
Hmm.
video an option? Because when I was signing up, it looked like I could only put audio.
Yeah, that is such a good question. Yeah. So, anytime that you're developing a product, it's always kind of this balancing act between what the vision is, what you want it to be, and then what your developers tell you, here's how quickly we can crank that feature out. And, there's like an endless back and forth going on there. So, at the risk of really making my devs mad, yeah, video's coming. But, at what point I can actually pull that off, we'll have to see.
That's awesome. Okay. Sorry, developers, but I think this is for the best, that people know.
I'm super glad you said that. Yeah, I'm gonna need a little bit of backup. The Andrews are gonna get mad at me. Or I guess you don't know that. My developers are right now. The guys that are working on this, they're both named Andrew. So we just lovingly call them the Andrews.
That's
So
funny.
the Andrews are mad at me right now, but see, listen to Jeremy. He knows. He
That's
knows why
funny.
we need it.
The singer in my current band is named Jeremy as well, so we're the Jeremys.
Oh, when the Jeremys and Andrews converge, I mean, we're really gonna make some cool stuff happen here. So,
This is gonna be huge. It's got to be. It's like
yeah,
a kismet or
yeah,
something.
exactly.
That's really exciting. It seems unfortunate that honestly, and this may not be the case, but I think it's going to be that larger bands probably won't be able to access this format.
Sure. Well, I mean, you can see it that way, or I guess the way that I would think of it is there's really only a need for something like stage dive, or at least the way that I picture it. And we'll see how this is up in practice. But the way I picture it is stage dive is a way to get started and get your leg up and start spreading your music around. By the time that you're signed and you have this deal where you've got royalties coming in, where you've got airplay, I mean, you have sort of graduated beyond what stage dive was built for. And we're while we never want to see anyone go, it's like, well, we'll be happy for you if you attain that kind of success where you don't really have a need for the platform. I mean, dude, you're living the dream. Go for it. That's awesome.
Okay, yes, I see why you would say that. Honestly, you say they've moved beyond that, but if they're selling or if they're streaming millions, like look at the K-pop groups, like New Jeans just became the fastest artist to ever hit 1 billion streams in like 12 days on Spotify.
Right. Yeah.
They obviously they're making lots of cash. Good for them, good for the company that they represent, et cetera, et cetera. But if they were on Stage Dive, you and they would be gajillionaires right now.
Right.
That's how the real world.
That's such a good point too, you know. So that is kind of the other half of the token. When you already are kind of baked into the old system, the way that music business has sort of developed to be in its present state, it does have a way of sort of locking you down and locking you in, and that can certainly feel very restrictive. So we don't, I mean, I guess that is a big part of why we're building what we're building. We want people to have options when it comes to, okay, I'm going to make a career out of this. Do I go option A where I sign and maybe that comes with certain benefits, but also certain restrictions, or do I go the independent route and use these new tools like Stagedive that are available to me, right? We want people to be able to make that choice. Some people are going to want the inherent value that comes with using a proven system. Fair enough. You know, we're not mad at you. We just think you're wrong. Right. But then make a, make an alternative, make something that we think is better. And we're going to be listening to the people who are using our platform for how we make it even better. For example, well, one thing that comes with a legacy contract is you've got access to all of the outlets to put your record out. You've got access to the platform that gets you lots and lots of streams. You've got access to the ability to crank out merchandise and then have that merchandise marketed everywhere. So something that Stage Dive has as sort of an answer to that is we've been kind of calling it the one-stop shop. It's an overused phrase, but so be it. It accurately describes what we're trying to be, such that as you bring up on the app, you're streaming a given band, that they'll have the ability to have their merch store show up as a part of the player, so that as you're listening, you can just be like, "Oh, I like this band. I'd like to support them." Tap tap. There you go. You just bought a T-shirt.
That's cool.
Or also having a calendar integrated as well. So, oh, they're playing at these places nearby me, and it's all just kind of in one screen. You know, we're divvying up the real estate on the screen, right? But as screens get bigger, thankfully, lots more real estate for us to work with there. But we're trying to make it so that you've got this all-inclusive ability. You've got access to a similar style of platform where your stuff that you're trying to sell, the things that you need in order to be successful as an act, that you have the ability to market that to whoever you encounter on Stage Dive.
That I mean, not even thinking as a creator, just thinking as the viewer, the listener. What you just said is amazing. Like my my daughter is really into K-pop. That's why I'm, like
It's on the
having a
brain. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But so she just found out that Blackpink just added some shows in Macau, so she's gonna go see them in Macau, which is fantastic. But how she found it exactly is this crazy convoluted story. But what you just said is like it's right there. I'm listening to the
Mhm.
band that I like, and it's just, oh, we're playing in, Ottawa in August. Come see us.
Yeah. Here's our upcoming shows. You think about why bands they sell their tour T-shirts, right? Where they've got all the dates and locations on the back. What's the purpose of something like that? It's because the band sells those T-shirts in city A, and then people buy the shirt and they see the other places that they're going to play on this tour. They're texting their friends, they're posting it on their socials, whatever. Now more people are aware of those shows. So we thought, okay, what's the digital equivalent of that? Yeah, be able to sell shirts in a digital store. That's a proven model that exists in a lot of places. It could certainly exist here as well. But then in addition to that, there's this whole aspect of trying to let people know where they can come and see you play. I remember back in the day when I was playing, right? Or when friends of mine were playing and I'm trying to help promote shows. One of the biggest challenges was getting enough people in that city to know that you're playing in that city, especially if you're a smaller act. So if you're a relatively undiscovered act and you decide we're going to go on our very first tour, post those dates in Stage Dive. Now, anybody who's discovering you through this digital medium, you can market to the people in all of the cities where you've never been before. And it's because everyone is meeting in this sort of virtual meeting area where they're experiencing your music. Where would be a better place to market than exactly there? Right.
Exactly. So that's exactly what I'm thinking. Because now, I mean, somebody might say, "Oh, that's advertising," but it's not the same at all. Because first of all, it's not interrupting the content enjoyment,
Bingo.
right?
Yeah.
And
It's
also,
not disrupting the immersive nature of the music. It's where you decide you want to explore deeper, you want to take the next level and see live. There it is, right in front of you. Super accessible. And that's
yes,
kind of the key word is the accessibility, not the disruptive nature of destroying the experience of hearing the music.
right. And if I'm listening to a band that I love, and it's specifically their merchandise, their show coming up, not only is it not destroying the experience, but it's actually adding to it because now I know more about this thing that I'm enjoying, and then I share it with my friends who I know also like this type of music. It's like it feels to me like when we used to make mixed. I'm gonna go back.
Yeah,
It feels
I'm
to me
with
like
you. I'm hearing the mixtape thing. Yeah, I was
yeah.
there. I remember that. Yeah.
So this is the digital mixtape really, because I'm saying, listen, I heard Iron Maiden on the radio last night. You're gonna love this here, and then when you're finished listening
Mhm.
to it, give it to Brendan over there. You know,
Pass it along. Yeah. Oh, this is John's mix. John has great taste in music. He's, got everything assembled right here in this tape. Or, I remember CDs, right? So we used to make mixtape CDs for
right?
the exact same thing. John's mix number 7, and passing around to all my buddies. And people know that that's they're trusting my taste in music and they're discovering more. They pass theirs back to me. But then, one additional piece to that is what I used to love about being able to walk into a record store. And whether you're buying records, tapes, or CDs, the experience was the same. You crack it open, you get to listen to that band, the story that they intended to tell from beginning to end on that album. You get to sit and vibe out to that and listen to it, and no one's disrupting it. The big headphones are on. Hey, why do we all own these things, right?
Yeah.
You want the immersive nature. You want something to sort of just focus on that vibe and experience what that band is putting out. So how do you recreate that in the digital age where everything is chopped up into just singles, and then it's thrown into a mix of, who knows, whatever the algorithm decided I should hear next, right? As opposed to this, it's a little more curated, it's a little more immersive with fewer things disrupting it. I mean, I'm trying to recreate my childhood here. Maybe I'm trying to bring back a cool experience that I had, but so be it. If it works, if it worked for me and other people love it, that's what I'm trying to go for.
Do you know what, John? I have thought that so many times. My daughter and my son have said to me before, sometimes I just listen to a song for like 30 seconds and then I'm done and I skip to the next one. And I think my listening sort of like concentration span is getting less and less. And I said, I don't think so. Because when we used to make cassettes and CDs, we used to do song stacking. So
Mm.
you have, let's say, 12 songs, and we would put them in order to give you, like we do with the set list when I play live. We start off with a certain song, a quiet song to get people sort of into the mood of the show, and then it builds, and you have, ebbs and flows. And we used to
Hmm.
do that with CDs, right? And
Definitely.
I'm sure that somebody out there, producers, you get a guy like Rick Rubin, something like that, who's producing records. He's thinking that way. But currently, it's very difficult to get that storytelling format across in the current media formats.
Precisely. Yeah, because you're taking a song out of context. Maybe that song was written to be a bridge between two other songs, right? Maybe that's what the creator was going for. And so they were trying to build an experience where you're listening in order and you get to hear something unique when you listen to it that way that maybe we miss out on if we're just buying into listening to them as isolated bits of music. There's a certain value to it, right? It could still be a good song, but a song that you get to listen to as the creator intended without the disruptions, I think that that'd be a cool experience to rebuild. And that's something that you can help to convey as you're building playlists on Stagedive, or as you're a creator releasing things on Stagedive. You can create a playlist and say, hey, as the creator, here's how I want you to experience this, or here's what I'm trying to convey to you or to communicate to you. At the end of the day, the musician is a storyteller. And I think one of the more effective storytellers if we let them do their thing.
Well, I mean, think about The Wall by Pink Floyd. You
Oh,
know,
wow. Yeah.
if you listen to that out of context, yeah, those songs are great anyway. But when you can listen to it in order, you can like see the picture as it develops. There's
That's
a
right.
reason that one song leads into the next. It's because they're telling a full story through, like, it's almost like an opera style. Do you know what I mean? Where
Absolutely. Yeah, it's painting a picture. It's painting a picture for the mind, and being able to recreate that, I think, is a big part of what we're doing here. But then also, some people want the smaller experience of a song out of context. So just, I think the flexibility to be able to do it either way, that's something that's absolutely necessary to provide a top tier experience for the listener.
So the other day I had put on John Coltrane. I love John Coltrane. I found this playlist, which I think is great that they have like the full album is Giant Steps. As I was listening, dun 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 dun, I love the chord progression of that song, and it goes into a commercial. And I
Mm.
was completely just blown out of the water. Like, I wanted to listen to that whole progression of the songs and how they saw that flow. That was like a very real listener experience from my perspective, where I'm listening to John Coltrane and you're going to interrupt it with some commercial about a car or something like that. You're killing me here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wish that we never evolved to the age of the MP3 and the digital stream, right? So it
Yes,
makes you
yes.
yearn for the days that I think CD was the last platform where you were able to have that experience of it not being disrupted, right?
Now, YouTube would say, well, pay for a subscription and then you won't have the ad come in, right? Or whatever.
Yeah,
But again, the same thing, like where does that money go?
exactly right. Yeah, it makes you yearn for the style of music you could consume prior to internet. Because exactly, how dare you interrupt the greats that I'm trying to experience right now? You always have a little bit of indignation, but I mean, think about how much more that indignation is if it's a small band that you just discovered, and so you've gone and you've looked up their stuff online and you're really into their stuff and you're trying to absorb a little bit more of their content, but you have to sit through, 2, 3 ads, and that's kind of the price that you're paying because you want to support the band, but you also want the experience. I don't know. I feel like it creates a lot of conflict, not only for the band having to sell out and have ads on their stuff. Not that that's necessarily a sellout 100% of the time. I won't say that about them. Sometimes it's a necessary evil. I'll put it that way. But then also, on the listener, you, you want the experience of the music. You don't want the experience of whatever business is trying to make money off of the band. I think that's what we're trying to overcome is we want to be a business, and we do have to be a business in order to create this platform. These things do cost money. But at the end of the day, we are not trying to own the experience. We are not trying to own the creator. It is all about making a platform. I mean, that's kind of what's built into our name, right? The stage dive. You get to jump off the platform and have your fans carry you. Right? That's
That's
that's the
amazing. I didn't,
experience you want to build.
is that why that's the name?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounded good when I said it, right? Yeah.
No, I think you should definitely use that. I think that's
Yeah.
like you could probably, I don't know. I think that was a really good example. I guess one of the questions I have, because you talked about the merchandising possibility for bands or for podcast creators, whatever. How does that work in terms of like the split? Is it still a 50-50 split for that for merchandise or?
No, there are going to be some special deals that we can work out with merchandise. Some of the details are still a little bit hazy because right now we're trying to get to the minimum viable product, which is just creators can upload music and share in the subs, right? That's really the first milestone that we're going to get to. So some of the finer details on some of the cooler advanced features are going to have to be worked out as we go. But as of right now, I mean, I don't really have a desire to take a portion of somebody's merch sales. I mean, maybe there'll be some transaction fee processing type of fees that have to happen just because credit card transactions cost money. So we're not going to be able to eat all that cost. So there's probably something along those lines. But I hadn't really thought to try to take a portion of the sale of the T-shirt. I mean, I don't think that I would want that. So, I mean, special deals, for example, that we have thought about that we've worked with certain bands is maybe there's a stage dive branded t-shirt for a band, right? Where maybe the front is their band logo and their information, and then maybe there's like a QR code or our logo somewhere on the back. So it's like a co-brand type opportunity. That's about as far as we've gone down that road, but it's more geared toward helping the artist roll out their merch. Maybe that's like a cost subsidized way for them to have merch on the store in the first place, is if they can kind of partner with us in that way. But yeah, I mean, if they've got their own merch and they're selling their own merch, there may be a cost for the feature so that it's like, hey, when your songs play, your store shows up as well. Maybe there's a cost associated there. But
That's nice because
yeah,
I'm thinking about you want to make it fair on both sides. For you guys, you are still setting up that platform, which potentially could be a big source of income for a band. I don't know if they got great shirts or whatever,
sure. Yeah. I mean,
but
they're just selling lots of merch. Yeah. We want them to be able to do that. In order for them to be able to do that, we have to be able to support the cloud infrastructure, the developers who make it happen, all of those kinds of things, the marketing that goes into making the platform relevant to folks who are going to buy your t-shirt, right? So to help us cover those costs, yeah, it's probably a paid feature to add that on. But at
yeah.
the end of the day, I mean, if you're selling tons of shirts, I don't want a portion of that profit. That's your profit. You've earned that. You're the band that made the shirt worthwhile, right?
Right. Well, that was one of Prince's arguments with his music is that at a certain point he was recording in his house using
Mm,
equipment that he had bought. Like everything was his in terms of the equipment used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the record company was still getting the same portion. It's kind of in a small way the same with this merch stuff. Merchandise
mhm.
is stuff that the band had to lay out the cash to do it. They had to do all of the planning infrastructure. You guys then create the platform for it to happen. So I like the idea of just saying, okay, as a creator, if you want this feature to pop up on your page while people are watching, there's a cost to that, but then the money that you make from the merchandise that you paid for and created and everything is yours. That's again, I'm going to say it again. This is like utopian music universe that you're suggesting. And I love the fact that it's out there. How do you get this word out there? Like, I mean, I heard about you guys on Twitter, and then we started sort of like texting back and forth. And I love that you're here talking about this. How else will the music world know about this?
So by doing stuff exactly like this, we want it to be largely word of mouth. I'm day in and day out on Twitter. People are messaging me back and forth all the time. For all those folks who weren't sure if you're just talking to some faceless rep on Twitter, no, it actually is me. I'm messaging folks day by day in and day out during my day job as well, right? So,
I
I
actually
mean,
asked that of somebody the other day. Are you AI or are you a real person? I was like,
yeah,
we
right.
were texting, you know.
I get asked that all the time, So yeah, no AI. We are people behind the scenes, right? And we what we're trying to do is make it so that they get so excited about it that musicians know other musicians and musicians know who follows them, the closest, right? So we want them to see such value in it that they're going to tell their other musician friends. They'll get into contact with us. We speak with them. That's a huge part of what we're doing. We don't really want to lose the relationship aspect of it because I mean, look, we're an unknown brand. There is a certain amount of trust that's required in order for people to upload a sample of their music or their email address into our website. So I want folks to know that they're speaking to a human being. Every person that I message on Twitter, I listen to their music first or their content. If they're a podcaster, in your case, I listen to some of it first so that I can let them know, hey, I have actually engaged with your content and I'm interested in having that content be a part of my platform. I don't really want to lose that. Mass marketing, yeah, mass marketing would be great for us. Anybody can dump a bunch of money into ads, and then every single person on the planet will have heard of Stagedive, overnight with enough cash. That's absolutely possible. It's not really what we're trying to build.
So
I mean, there
that's
will be some
interesting.
marketing involved, but I never want it to be the primary.
I was wondering that as I was signing up our Mind on Music for Stagedive, and it asked for an audio sample, which is why I asked you whether or not there would be video. But I was thinking, that's interesting. Why do they want an audio sample? And now I know, and I couldn't think of a cooler reason for that to exist. You're gonna
Yeah,
listen to it and like actually know what we create rather than like I don't think anybody at Spotify has ever listened. I'm not throwing them under the bus. We have lots of listeners on Spotify. It's great,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
but
they're a great platform for what they do, right? But I
they're not
see your
listening
point.
to our content and checking it before it happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, so we all love music. We're all a part of the music business already. Each of these folks that are kind of working on this project with me. So I think about when, I mean, because I'm going to date myself here. I mean, I got my start on MySpace, right? And so on when it came to MySpace or uploading content there, nobody cared. I mean, it was 100% who do you know and who's going to go on. Who can you drive to your page? Very, very organic. And I thought that aspect of it was actually kind of cool. But I mean, even before we get to the stage where people are signing up, I mean, when it's just on Twitter, I'm personally going to people's, Spotify or SoundCloud or YouTube or wherever to listen to their content first. I mean, not really for a quality check, right? I mean, I'm not listening for, how good is your engineering or how good is your your production quality at the end of the day. It's more that I want to be able to engage with that creator to express to them like a human being has heard your stuff and is interested in moving forward. And I like remembering being a creator, I remember how impacted I personally felt when somebody had heard my music or engaged with my content and wanted to speak to me after having done that. Like to me, that like
Yeah.
inflated my head insanely. I mean, it made me feel so good that
Well, that's
somebody had
exactly
done
what's
that,
happening right now, though, right? Like when I saw what I thought your platform was presenting, I thought, if it's that, then we need to be talking about this on our Mind on
Mm.
Music. And now you're confirming to me that it's exactly what I was hoping it would be, right?
I mean, and like I said, that is extraordinarily exciting to me that, you were hoping for what we were actually trying to build. I mean, that's fantastic. And I hope to continue in that vein and continue to make it as cool as possible for folks like you.
There's one thing I want to throw in because the last couple episodes we've on our Mind on Music, we've been talking about AI with the thought of like what that means for music creativity, but it's very quickly
Mhm.
moved into all areas of creativity, whether it's writing or visual art.
Absolutely.
One of the things is I feel like Stage Dive is almost inadvertently a response to that as well. because I can go on to, let's say, Apple Music or Amazon Music, Spotify, whatever, and I could listen to a song that was created by AI, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Now, there's a whole thing about prompt engineering and how that is a different type of creativity using AI. Great.
Mhm.
And that might exist on Stagedive as well. But the difference here is that the creator is putting that onto Stagedive. And I feel like the personal connection, deciding without an algorithm, but personal human decision making, I like this and I want to share it and I want it to grow, to help it grow. It seems like a very human response to the possibility of AI music versus songwriters sitting and crafting their songs to express a feeling or an
Yeah.
idea.
Well, so yeah, I mean, I'll say it's not even really inadvertent. I mean, that's
Okay.
a big part of why we wanted to start something like this, because I'm a big believer in the listener, right? I trust the listener. I think that a listener knows when their emotions have been touched, when they have been reached by a piece of music. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible for AI to do that, because AI is getting better by the second, really. I mean, GPT-4 is already blowing everybody's mind with what it's able to do. It's really unbelievable. I mean, so mind-blowing, high-quality stuff. But I think that the listener is always going to resonate with what a human has created better than what AI has created. Both of those are equally welcome on the platform. I'm sure there will be some people who do AI generated music and they post it to our site. And I'm actually very interested to see how it performs stacked next to the human creators. And
That's what I'm
I,
thinking.
like I, yeah, I totally trust the listener that they'll be able to judge accurately the value of something like that. And we'll see what happens. But it's sort of the wild west of music out here on stage dive.
Yeah, it's like this, almost that aspect of it is like almost a social experiment to see what resonates with people, but we'll be able to see it directly because, as you said, you can throw cash at something and it'll happen, right?
Yep, sure.
It's
Yeah.
it's just by repetition. But in this case, it's absolutely like the listeners themselves, ourselves, you being part of that as well,
Oh, I'm definitely a listener on stage dive as well. Yes.
Yes. So we're
Yeah.
deciding what exactly is going to be on there. And I think that's super exciting. So I just want to say thank you again, John. I really appreciate this chat. And I really think what you have going is exciting already. And I'm really excited to see it grow.
Hey, I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for sharing this, giving me the opportunity to hop on and talk a little bit about it. We're obviously really excited, but let's follow up again a little bit down the road and see where
Absolutely.
it
I
goes.
would love to do a follow-up chat in like a couple of months and see where you guys are next.
Yeah, we're down for it, man. We'll be there.
Thanks a lot, John.
All right, Jeremy.
All
Thanks.
right.
We'll
All the
talk
best
soon.
to you and the Andrews.
All right, thank you.
Cheers. See you later.
See ya.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.